Hello, Flappers. I'm Flappy, and this is my show. That's the opening music. This week is pretty special because we are doing a Reddit is Wrong episode of Dear Flappy. I have some questions people asked in various Reddit posts and threads, and I have often found that Reddit advice is pretty hit or miss. Like, sometimes they really get it, but a lot of times Reddit does a pretty bad job of answering people's questions. So I went through the weekly questions thread and sort of picked out the questions that the little anonymous aliens got wrong. Let's get to the first question here. This comes from Reddit user One More Astronaut. Question is, regarding the timing of reaction spells, what is considered the right time to use a reaction spell, such as shield? Is it table dependent, or is there a rule as written? Example, using a reaction before or after the hit roll, before or after the damage roll. Someone did answer adjudicating reaction timing from the Dungeon Master's Guide, which says follow the timing specified. But another person said shield is very table dependent because rules as written can slow things down and it requires the DM to roll in secret. Interesting to me that they thought this was the longer version of doing it. I'm here to tell you that Reddit is wrong in this case. Doing things rules as written isn't slower. What you need to do, and you have to be prepared. What I do is I make a printout sheet. And I look at the printout, and every session I make sure that the armor classes and the passive perceptions are up to date. Write on it AC for each character, and then also you have somewhere written down in your notes, or you can also put it on the same sheet, the ACs for all of your monsters. That's going to take care of a lot of things for you. You don't have to ask, does a 19 hit? So it's a weird thing to think that this is the slower version of doing that. Things go a lot faster for me when I don't have to be asking people questions every time I need a piece of information that I could be accessing on my own. You roll, you look at the ACs, you decide whether or not it hits, and then you give them space at each step of the way to say, I want to use cutting words here. It's the way that it should be done, in my opinion. Your DM screen can help you run combat so much more easily. You can just keep track of information that doesn't change all that often, like AC. Moving on. The next question, this one was really interesting because there are a lot of responses, but I think I have the most correct response. Okay, this one comes from Reddit user Meow Low. Can anyone recommend some Mead-themed adventures? Running a campaign soon, and most of my players have some usual fantasy stuff like kill God, be consumed by God, be chosen by God, etc. But then I got this one player that just wants to travel the world in search of Mead. Wants to try the best Mead each nation has to offer. Any ideas on something I can do to make interesting content for that character? You can see here some okay answers. I think they get about halfway there. Focus on the uniqueness of each nation's mead. This is so far the best answer. I think everyone's ignoring the story that is writing itself here. I wrote down some notes. You guys, let me know if you think this would be fun. But here's what I've got for this adventure. A drunk man wanders about town shouting profanities at every person who wanders by. Rumor has it he used to be a legend, a brewmaster with the greatest mead in the continent. He worked alone at the top of a hill with a kangaroo named Hops. Hops was taken and passed away in the scuffle. The brewmaster burned down his hilltop shack and abandoned his craft. He took up the bottle and hasn't been sober since. I think this is just enough of a really basic backstory for an NPC that will grab this player and this character's attention. It's enough to get them invested, and then you can create a ton of different missions based on this one NPC. The point of this question isn't that this player needs to go to different bars across different countries. Every glass needs to have a story. This character isn't looking for mead. They are looking for a story that revolves around mead. Mead is a way to get them hooked on the story. All right, let's move on. Next question comes from Wheel Dog, and the question says, how do I learn the game if there's no one around to teach noobs? Everyone says they'll teach me, but it never happens, and I just want to play with them, but I have no clue how to. Is there a way to learn on my own. One was joining a new player-friendly Discord. That's probably the best piece of advice here. Then there's this one which says, read the rules. I know that they go further into depth, but first of all, saying read the rules to someone who has expressed interest in D&D is probably one of the more gatekeepy things you can do, and it's not on purpose, and I understand that. But when you say read the rules, that comes with books that are this thick, this tall, and this wide, and you are saying, hey, take a look at these piles and piles of books and learn to play D&D. The overall encompassing thing about D&D is that you make decisions, you roll to see if it's okay, the DM narrates it, and you move on and do the same again over and over until your character dies or retires. It's not complicated, but the books make it look complicated, and the books are not a good source to turn beginners to, which is ass backwards in your head, and I get that. Just be like, hey, watch Dimension 20. They do a good job of showing what happens in a D&D game. You can just see the sort of dynamic between the DM and the players and what it's like to be a player. Adventure Zone, episode 1, is literally just people learning how to play D&D. It can be observed, and you can learn by watching or learn by playing. I guarantee you reading the rules already occurred to this person. What didn't occur to this person, 1, that the game is simpler than the rules. The game is much simpler than the rules. Number 2, that they can learn by watching other people play. If they have seen Dimension 20, if they have seen Critical Role, they can play D&D. The rules are a supplement to your knowledge of the basic concept of the game. After that, the rulebook is a guidebook for creating a character. Moving on, we got one last question here. This is from Reddit user Aggravating Resist 50. I'm currently making a new character who is an escape experiment, and their race is a changeling and class is a rogue. I was wondering what to make their alignment, since it maybe matters. The idea behind this character is someone who is forced to murder people for their owner and bring light that artificial weapons can be made and be rather useful. So any ideas for alignment? Almost all of the answers were some form of some piece of this response. Number 1, forget about alignment. Number 2, think about who your character is. And then number 3, I saw this bunch underneath this post. What drives your character? I didn't like any of these answers. I like what drives them the most, but they all sort of revert back to forget about alignment. And I think I've given that advice before, but I thought about it this time. This player stumbled on something really important. Alignment is a struggle for this character. Don't disregard the alignment box. If your character is in a situation where they have performed actions that they believe were bad in the past, they want to perform good actions in the future, but their conditioning has led them to not be sure of the difference between good and bad, it is worthwhile to think about alignment. Write it down what you think at first, but don't write it in ink. Some characters aren't sure of their morals and aren't sure exactly where they stand on the line of good and evil. That makes it a really important story value to that character. Those scales that your character jumps around on are the things that make the story interesting. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Should we really consider alignment, or should we X out the box completely? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.